What is going on, guys? Nate Gould here, and today we're going to look at a little breakdown of Mirage, if it's good for your map pool. If you're not really sure what this video is in reference to, in the description there will be a link to the original video about starting a map pool and what things you have to look at for it. So let's get right into Mirage right here. So first of all, let's look at the CT side. We'll do the advantages first. First one is you do not need a lot of map control. And I think that is a big advantage, which means that you don't have to take early fights necessarily if you don't want to. The only place you really have to fight for is mid. And if the T's, not going to let me write, is mid. And if the T's don't have a lot of utility, it's hard for them to take mid. And so if you can get a good run, you're pretty much set. But even if you don't have mid, you at least know you can watch cat, get someone in ladder room, have someone in window, make sure they don't boost or something like that. You can still fall back. And it's one of those maps where if you give up mid, you can still survive. Some teams aren't very good at taking mid, and they're very good at just baiting the T's into a crossfire, or baiting the T's into the sites and then beating them there. So there's different ways you can play it. If your team's really good on retakes, if your teams are just really good crossfiring in sites, if you have a good setup, a good communication, just let them know, okay, they could be up connector, and make sure someone's watching connector, make sure someone's watching this and that. Just knowing where your gaps are and being kind of dynamic where you play, you can still kind of get them even if they have just mid control. Keeping mid control is important, but otherwise that's the only part of the map you really want to contend, right? You can give the T's full apps control right up to the windows where they're peak coming out, full pals control and full ram control. You don't need any of that. And you don't have to take those risks to get it to be successful on the CT side, which is good. Because a lot of, there are some maps where you want to make sure you can have as much map control, like, for instance, Dust 2. You don't want to give them long, so you want to have players taking those early fights, using a lot of utility, and making sure you have someone pit or at least two people holding long corner. And so that could cause a lot of deaths. You want to make sure someone's holding mid. You can't just leave mid at Dust 2, so someone could peek you mid. And you're subject to getting flashed out and pushed through mid, and then you're kind of by yourself. So those maps, that's a map where you have to have a little more contention early on in the round, where this one you don't really have to. It's good to try to get mid, and unless they have a really great spawn, it's pretty easy to do. But it's not 100% necessary, so that's definitely a benefit. It's easy to hold off pushes with utility, obviously. All you have getting into A is ramp and palace, and then apps getting into B. You also have cat and connector, but they turn into very small choke points getting in. Excuse me. So just a couple of mollies, some flashes, some nades. It's very easy to do, and it's, like I said, it's small choke points and a lot of angles to hold them. So you can have someone, right, you want to hold apps. You could have someone in sight here, 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 all the way back, sitting from window, from van, on van, next to van. There's a little angle, headshot angle there. Pretty much anywhere, right? You can have someone window watching van, window watching apps. So you have all these angles to watch this one choke point. So you can be very dynamic where the T's aren't always going to know where you are. So it's very easy to set up crossfires, and it's very easy to change what you're doing to make sure that you have the advantage going into the site. So that's a huge advantage. And also the double op is very strong in this map. You can have a solo guy, op B, if they're not rushing B a lot, and then this way you can focus more towards mid. You can have a guy watching cat A, focus more towards mid, and then always have your op window. So there's a lot of different things you can do, and it's very strong to have an op anchoring your site. Either way, you can either have a double op mid, one cat, one window. So it's very strong in this map. It's good to have. The disadvantages are that utility is very important. If you don't have utility on CT side Mirage, there's a lot of things the T's can do to just rush out and get in your face. And if you're not hitting some really nice shots at some tight angles, like coming out, if they just all fly out Tetris, all fly out Palace, rush mid, get into connector, rush apps, if you can't stop the push, if you can't slow it down, or at least do like a lot of nade damage so that they're kind of squishy when they come out to fight you, it can get very difficult to hold the sites, and you can start losing it. The sites can be hard to retake. There's a lot of places to plant and a lot of places to hold on both sites. You can plant at different angles that are watched by different things. There's a lot of corners you can hide in, a lot of time to delay. And so if you don't have the utility and you don't have really good retakes, your team could struggle a lot on this. If you can't flush people out, and they can burn a lot of time. And it requires a lot of insight communication, because you have to make sure, like, the biggest thing the biggest problem is like ace sight on this map, because people will think you're watching something because you're playing two sight, and something will be open, and this guy will walk out palace and like pick this guy who was looking. Oh, jeez, I didn't know I could do that. And pick like this guy who was looking ramp because he thinks you're connector, but you were watching, mid and not palace. But he thinks you are because he just sees a bleep on the radar. So it requires a lot of communication in the site. Same things would be, the cat guy. You're playing like a passive angle maybe. Just like standing right here watching this for the walkout, but this guy doesn't know it and he gets backstabbed. Oh geez, my arrow drawing gets backstabbed on cat or something like that. You have to know what you're watching and what you're looking at and what's open when you're holding these sites, because there is room for people to try to sneak out. And if you don't play it together right, they can get advantages that way. And for a lot of teams, that's a hard thing to do. That's why I think that's a big disadvantage. Now, for the T side, you can do a lot of low block buys and a lot of fast hits. So if you have rifles with low utility, you can just execute A, or there's a smoke execute that smokes, where is it, right? Pretty much a line right here. Actually, it kind of goes right here, and it smokes here. So that this is the only part of the map that's open. So if you have low utility, you can do that. Right? You can have like a couple rifles stay apps, and then 3 Tech 9s, all this utility, jump into sight, and then have the Tech 9s just push cat or something, and just plant right in the middle of the smoke. And then the palace guy or the apps guy can look there. The Tech 9s can look there on cat, and it's a hard retake with low utility. You could just throw smokes A, rush A, even if you don't have full guns. You can do that with Tech 9s. Or you can just walk up to the smoke and Tech 9 armor out, fly out. If they can't get the kills in time, you just hold the smoke to drop the molly. Hit a couple of good shots, you can win rounds that way. So that's always a T advantage. So some maps that's kind of hard to do, but this is a pretty easy one. You can easily use utility to cut off players. Like I said, at A, we all know the classic smoke all this pretty much. There's one where you smoke, I think it's like this. And then you just plant here and fall back. Same thing with B, the one I just showed you, where it just makes a line of smoke there. Or even if you just like smoke off window, double smoke cat, deal with the sight guys. Mid, smoke off window, connector, cat. I mean, it's all very basic smokes, and it's very easy to just cut players off and isolate them. So that's a great advantage for that. The hard thing about T side is, it's easy to smoke out mid too, which gives you a good advantage when trying to get mid control. If you have the utility to smoke, molly, nade, and flash and keep them from getting back, you can take early mid control pretty easily. Disadvantages is it's hard to peek as an op. Since they kind of updated it where you can't walk as fast, unless you have a good spawn, it's hard to peek mid straight up like you used to. It's hard to peek palace straight up like you used to. You used to be able to just crouch peek into palace, but now it's slower. So you have to make sure you have like teammates baiting the opper towards mid while you set up an angle. Something I like to do actually is like send a couple guys top mid, like smokes, flash, nades, or whatever. Make the opper, don't smoke window, just make the opper kind of give attention mid. Then have a guy here and the op walk up. When the op tanks this angle, this guy like throws maybe like a stair smoke and makes some noise so that when the opper walks back, you're already holding the angle. But it used to just be you could just crouch pre-fire this, but now the crouch pre-fire is so slow because you're moving areas. It's hard to get early picks unless you're playing off spawns or you're like a really good opper. So it does kind of hurt your opping on T side a little bit the way it is. It is small choke points on the entry, and there's a lot of angles in sight, and it's easy to take nade and molly damage. So it's hard to get the entries, but once you get the sight, you're in pretty good shape. And the rotates can be fast. A lot of the plays can be telegraphed pretty easily. And if you have a guy playing window or a guy playing connector or a guy playing cat, the window guy can easily rotate. Oh, why do I keep doing that? To easily rotate to either site. And even this or this isn't a very long rotate. So once you start taking the site, the other CTs can get there very fast. So you got to make sure you're clean. When you're getting the site, you got to cut the head off. You got to cut the head off the snake right away so the body's useless, basically. So for me, I think that this map it's good for aimers because there is a lot of tight angles in sight. And once you're getting in sight, if you can hit those nice shots either way, on CT or T side, you'll have a great advantage. But I think it's also really easy just to use tactics on, because it's easy to get mid control. And once you have mid control, you can throw a lot of fakes. You can do a lot of splits and stuff like that. And so for me, I give this one more to the strategic team, just because the aim, being aim reliant on this map could be risky. Because if someone even decent can hit some of these harder angles you got to peek into, even if you have better aim than them, they're going to be at an advantage a lot of the times you're taking peeks here. And just because they can use utility so easily to take you out, if you just try to take a lot of aim fights, I give this one to the tactical team. If you have good tactics on T side, good nade usage, and retakes on CT side, which is also requires some tactics, you can pretty much just take away the hard fights and make it a lot easier sights at medium range. So you don't need to hit long range crazy shots. You can take a lot of mid range trades, and you're still pretty good. You don't need to have the best aim to win this map, but you do have need to have a lot of good teamwork and tactics. So hopefully this helps. Like I said, in the description below will be a link to the map pool playlist where you can see the other maps just like this one, and that'll break down just like this one, and then there'll be the link to the actual original map pool video where I talk about the importance of a map pool and how to find one. Thank you guys for watching so much. Like, comment, subscribe. All my social media is down in the description too if you want to follow me on anything. Have a good day.